This particular bag is over $2,000.
I can see the price tag.
We have a very strict return policy, so if you're not absolutely certain, I'd suggest looking at our more reasonably priced options.
What makes you think I'm not?
I've been managing the store for 3 years, and I know our clientele. I know who shops here and who doesn't.
Elijah stood outside the glass doors of his own luxury store with his hands in his hoodie pockets, heart pounding, knowing that in the next few minutes he might discover that everything he built with honesty and pride was being poisoned from the inside by one cruel judgment he never approved. Before I continue, tell me where you are watching from right now. And if this story already has your attention, please subscribe and stay with me, because what happens next will change everything. Elijah was not dressed like the owner of a high-end brand. No tailored suit. No polished shoes. Just worn sneakers, dark jeans, and a plain hoodie. Anyone looking at him would see an average black man killing time on a weekday morning. No one would guess he owned more than 80 luxury stores across the country, or that his name was stitched inside every handbag behind those glass doors. That was exactly why he chose this look. He needed the truth, not respect given only to power. For weeks, his inbox had been filling with messages that left him restless at night. Customers describing being watched too closely. Customers saying their hands shook as staff hovered behind them. Customers explaining how their excitement turned into shame within seconds of walking inside one specific location. All of them sounded calm, careful with their words, but the pain was easy to read. All of them were black. Elijah had built his business from the ground up. One small rented space. One display case. One dream to prove that black excellence could stand tall in spaces that once shut their doors. He hired people he trusted. He wrote policies that promised dignity. He trained managers to treat every customer with respect. Or so he believed. This store, the Westbridge location, had always looked perfect on paper. Sales steady. Inventory clean. Reports on time. The manager, a woman named Clara, had glowing performance notes. She was described as firm, professional, and detail-oriented. No warnings. No red flags. Just quiet efficiency. That made the complaints even harder to accept. Elijah did not rush to judgment. He never had. He read every email twice. He called some customers himself. He listened without interrupting. One woman said she was asked 3 times if she needed help, even after saying no. Another said an employee blocked the exit while pretending to clean. A college student said her bag was searched after she touched a wallet. Elijah felt each story hit him like a punch to the chest. He knew this feeling too well. Being measured. Being doubted. Being treated like a problem before opening your mouth. Success had not erased those memories. It only sharpened them. Instead of firing anyone based on words alone, Elijah made a decision that cost him sleep. He would walk into the store as himself, but not as the owner. No warning. No titles, just a customer. He pulled the door open. The soft chime rang. Cool air brushed his face. The smell of leather and perfume filled his lungs. The store was quiet, clean, calm. 2 white shoppers stood near the back laughing softly as they examined scarves. A young employee arranged receipts near the counter. Then Clara stepped out from the stockroom. She noticed Elijah instantly. Her eyes scanned him from head to toe in a way that lasted half a second too long. Her smile appeared late, tight, practiced. Elijah felt it. The shift. The invisible wall sliding into place. He walked slowly toward a display of leather bags. He picked one up, feeling the smooth surface he had approved himself months earlier. Clara did not greet him. She did not offer assistance. She repositioned herself where she could see him clearly. Elijah moved to another shelf. So did she. The air felt heavier with every step. The other customers laughed freely, touching items without fear. Elijah felt watched, counted, measured. His shoulders tightened, but he kept his movements calm. Normal. Careful. He reached for a cream-colored handbag placed under a spotlight. Before his fingers touched it, Clara spoke. Her voice sounded polite, but it carried an edge that made his stomach turn. She warned him of the price as if it were a danger sign. Elijah looked at the tag. He answered simply, stating that he could read. Silence followed. The young employee froze. Clara's smile thinned. She spoke again, slower this time, explaining the strict return policy, suggesting cheaper items, guiding him away from the display with invisible hands. Every word was smooth, clean, controlled, but the meaning underneath was sharp and ugly. Elijah asked one calm question. What made her think he was not serious? That was when Clara changed. Her posture stiffened. Her voice lost warmth. She explained that she knew her clientele, that she had experience, that some people came only to touch, not to buy, that this store was not for everyone. She never said race. She did not need to. Elijah felt something break inside him. Not surprise. Not shock. Just confirmation. He nodded once. He placed the bag down carefully, the way you place something fragile that still deserves respect. He turned and walked out without another word. The door chimed behind him. Inside his car, Elijah sat frozen, hands gripping the wheel. His chest burned. His phone vibrated softly as the hidden cameras sensed automatically. He pressed play. He watched everything again. The look, the tone, the judgment. And he knew this was only the beginning. Elijah did not cry. He did not shout. He did not doubt himself. He sat there breathing slowly, reminding himself why he came. This was not about ego. This was about truth. About the customers who felt small. About the employees too afraid to speak. He started the engine, already planning his next move, knowing the real test had just begun. What he would uncover would shake the store, the staff, and his own heart forever. Nothing would stay hidden anymore. Elijah did not sleep that night, not because he was angry, but because his mind kept replaying the quiet moments he could not unsee, the moments where silence carried more harm than shouted insults ever could. By sunrise, he was back in his office, jacket still on, eyes heavy, staring at the footage on his screen. The cameras did not lie. The angle was clear. The sound was clean. Every pause, every look, every shift in tone was captured. When Elijah watched himself enter the store, he noticed details he missed before. Clara stepping slightly closer. Clara blocking the aisle without meaning to. Clara watching his hands instead of his face. These were not accidents. They were habits. He forwarded the video to his legal advisor and his head of operations. He asked them not for opinions, but for honesty. The responses came quickly. Words like pattern, risk, and liability filled his inbox. But Elijah did not need legal language to explain what he felt. He knew discrimination when he lived it. Before taking action, he wanted one more thing: context. Elijah returned to the Westbridge location 2 days later, this time watching from across the street. He sat inside a cafe with tinted windows, coffee untouched, eyes fixed on the store entrance. Customers came and went. He noted who received smiles, who was followed, who was left alone. The pattern revealed itself slowly, then clearly. A black man in business clothes was watched closely but not confronted. A black woman with a stroller was offered help twice within 1 minute. A white teenager in gym shorts wandered freely, touching everything. Clara moved through the space like a quiet gatekeeper, deciding who belonged without speaking it out loud. At one point, a middle-aged black man entered and browsed wallets. After a few minutes, a uniformed police officer stepped inside, greeted Clara with familiarity, and stood near the entrance. The man noticed. His shoulders stiffened. He left without buying anything. Elijah's jaw tightened. He stood and walked back to his car, decision settling like stone in his chest. That afternoon, Elijah called the young employee who had been at the counter during his visit. Her name was Leila. She answered nervously, voice low. Elijah introduced himself fully this time. There was silence on the line, then a sharp inhale. He did not ask her to defend anyone. He asked one question. Had she seen this behavior before? Leila cried quietly. She said yes. She said she had seen customers followed. She said she was told to call the police more often. She said Clara once warned her about certain types of shoppers. Leila said that she was scared to speak up because she needed the job. Elijah thanked her for telling the truth. He told her she would not face consequences. He meant it. The next morning, Elijah scheduled a mandatory meeting. Clara was told it was a routine performance review. She arrived confident, notes in hand, posture straight. She smiled when she saw Elijah on the screen, unaware she had met him before. Elijah did not raise his voice. He did not insult her. He played the video. The room went silent. Clara's face drained of color. Her mouth opened, then closed. She tried to explain. She said she was protecting the store. She said theft was real. She said she treated everyone the same. Elijah let her finish. Then he asked one simple question. Why did the police only appear after black customers entered? Clara could not answer. Elijah ended the meeting with one sentence. Her employment was terminated, effective immediately. Access revoked. Final pay processed. He wished her well, not because she deserved kindness, but because he refused to become cruel. Within hours, Clara's store access codes were changed. A regional supervisor was dispatched. Elijah sent an internal memo reminding every manager that discrimination was not a misunderstanding, but a violation. Training sessions were scheduled nationwide, but Elijah did not stop there. He personally called the man who had left when the police arrived. The man answered cautiously. Elijah apologized without excuses. He explained what happened. The man listened, quiet. He said thank you, not for the apology, but for believing him. 2 days later, Elijah visited the store again, this time openly. He walked in wearing a tailored suit. Employees froze when they realized who he was. Leila smiled through tears. Elijah reassured her with a nod. He addressed the staff briefly. He said the store was not a checkpoint. He said customers were not suspects. He said dignity was not optional. Then he left. Outside, the same police officer stood near the door. Elijah approached him calmly. He asked why he was called so often. The officer shrugged, said it was protocol. Elijah asked whose protocol. The officer avoided his eyes. Elijah told him something simple. His store did not need intimidation to prevent theft. The officer left without argument. That night, Elijah reviewed applications for a new manager. He chose someone with experience and empathy. A woman named Renee. She had worked retail for over a decade. Her record was clean. Her references spoke of fairness. Elijah trusted his instinct. As the sun set, Elijah stood by his window, city lights blinking on. The damage was real. The harm could not be undone overnight, but the silence had been broken. Systems were shifting. Eyes were open. Still, he knew something else was coming. Stories travel. People talk. Clara would not disappear quietly. And when consequences arrive, resistance often follows. Elijah braced himself. Because the judgment that changed everything was no longer hidden. It was exposed. And exposure has a way of pulling more truth into the light, whether people are ready or not. The fallout did not come quietly, and Elijah knew it wouldn't, because people who are exposed rarely accept responsibility without trying to rewrite the story first. 3 days after Clara was fired, Elijah's office phone started ringing nonstop. Emails poured in. Messages marked urgent stacked on top of each other. Clara had begun contacting people. Former coworkers. Industry contacts. Store managers at other brands. She claimed she was unfairly targeted. She said she was fired for doing her job. She hinted that Elijah was emotional, biased, and reckless. She never mentioned the video. Elijah listened to every report without reacting. He had expected this. When power slips away, panic often replaces reflection. By the end of the week, a lawyer's letter arrived. Clara was threatening legal action, wrongful termination, damage to reputation, emotional distress. Elijah read it slowly, then handed it to his legal team. They were calm. They told him the truth was on his side. Video evidence, witness accounts, written policy violations. Elijah nodded. He was not afraid of court. He was afraid of silence. That same week, something else happened. A black teenager named Noah walked into the Westbridge store after school. He wore a backpack and sneakers. He stood near the entrance for a moment, unsure. The new manager, Renee, noticed immediately. She walked over, smiled, and welcomed him. No hovering. No warning about prices. No eyes on his hands. Just respect. Noah bought a belt with money he had saved for months. When he left, he smiled to himself. That small moment mattered more to Elijah than any sales report. But not everyone welcomed the change. One afternoon, a police officer entered the store again. Different officer this time. He stood near the counter, arms crossed. Rennie noticed customers stiffen. Elijah happened to be there, observing quietly. He approached the officer himself. The officer said he was responding to a call. Elijah asked who called. The officer said store management. Elijah looked at Rennie. She shook her head. She had made no call. Elijah turned back to the officer. He asked why police were being sent to a store with no reported crime. The officer said it was preventative. Elijah asked who was being prevented. The officer looked at Elijah for a long moment. The conversation was tense but controlled. Elijah stated clearly that his store did not request police presence without cause. He said customers had the right to shop without fear. The officer left, uncomfortable but silent. Elijah documented everything. That evening, Elijah made a decision that would follow Clara far beyond his company. He wrote a letter. Not emotional. Not dramatic. Clear and factual. It stated that Clara was terminated for discriminatory conduct toward customers. It referenced policy violations. It mentioned evidence existed. No insults. No opinions. Then Elijah sent it. He sent it to luxury retailers, department stores, boutique chains, hospitality brands, any place where Clara might apply and be placed in a position of authority over customers. He did not tell them what to do. He simply told them what happened. His lawyers warned him again. This could escalate. Elijah accepted that risk. He believed that harm repeated in silence becomes shared guilt. Within days, responses arrived. Some thanked him quietly. Some asked for copies of policies. Some shared similar stories from their own businesses. A few said nothing at all. Clara's lawyer called again. The tone had changed. Less confidence. More caution. Meanwhile, Elijah met with staff across the city. He listened. Employees admitted they had seen things but felt powerless. Elijah told them power only works when people protect it. He promised protection for anyone who spoke up. He meant it. Sales at the Westbridge location did not drop. They rose. Customers left reviews describing warmth, safety, fairness. One review said, "I finally felt like I belonged." Elijah saved that one. A month later, Elijah received a call from a community leader. He thanked Elijah for taking action instead of issuing statements. He said people noticed. Elijah said change should not need applause. Clara never apologized publicly. She never admitted fault. She continued to claim misunderstanding. But job offers stopped coming. Interviews ended early. Questions followed her everywhere. Elijah did not celebrate that. He did not enjoy it. Accountability was not a trophy. It was a responsibility. Late one night, Elijah sat alone in his office watching the old footage one last time. He did not feel anger anymore. He felt clarity. One judgment had revealed a system that needed correction. Ignoring it would have been easier. Facing it changed everything. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, Elijah prepared for the final step. Because fixing one store was not enough. What he planned next would force the entire company to confront itself. And once that door opened, there would be no turning back. Elijah knew fixing one store was not the end of the work, because problems that hide in one place often live quietly in others, waiting for the right moment to surface. He called a company-wide meeting the following week. Not a speech filled with buzzwords. Not a celebration of values, just facts. He showed managers data from customer complaints. He showed patterns. He showed timelines. He did not show Clara's video, but he explained what happened in clear terms. Discrimination had occurred. It had consequences, and it would not be tolerated again. Some managers shifted in their seats. Some nodded. A few looked uncomfortable. Elijah noticed everything. He announced new rules. Every store would undergo surprise audits. Every complaint would be reviewed within 48 hours. Every employee would receive training that focused on real behavior, not theory. He removed vague language from policies and replaced it with direct instructions. Do not follow customers. Do not assume intent. Do not involve police without clear cause. Treat everyone with respect or do not work here. No applause followed. Elijah did not expect any. Over the next months, change became visible. Complaints dropped. Reviews improved. Employees began speaking up sooner. One manager resigned quietly. Another was retrained. Systems worked because people knew they were being watched, not by cameras, but by accountability. Elijah visited stores more often now, sometimes dressed plainly, sometimes openly as the owner. He spoke to staff. He listened to customers. He watched body language more than numbers. Success meant nothing if dignity was missing. One afternoon, Elijah returned to the Westbridge location. Rennie greeted him warmly. Lila waved from the counter, confident now. Customers moved freely, relaxed. No police. No tension. Just people shopping. A black mother and her son stood near the handbags. The boy asked questions loudly. No one hushed him. No one stared. The mother smiled. Elijah turned away quietly, chest tight, not from pain, but relief. Outside the store, Elijah sat in his car and thought about how close he came to never knowing the truth. If those customers had stayed silent, if he had dismissed the emails, if he had trusted reports instead of people, one judgment would have remained hidden, repeating itself again and again. Clara eventually stopped trying to fight back. The legal threats faded. Her name disappeared from industry circles. Elijah did not follow her path. He did not need to. His focus stayed forward. A year passed. At the annual company review, Elijah looked at the numbers. Growth was steady. Profit was healthy. But what mattered most to him was something harder to measure. Trust had returned. Communities that once avoided his stores were coming back. People recommended the brand not just for quality, but for how it made them feel. Elijah stood before his leadership team and said something simple. We do not sell luxury. We sell respect. The product is just proof. No one argued. Later that night, Elijah went home and placed the hoodie he wore that first day into a drawer.